All right, call to order the Thursday, January 19th meeting of the East Bank Stadium Committee. We've got a quorum here, plus a few council members not on the committee. Thanks for being here. The agenda is short. It's got one item. When we last met around the 15th of December, we were a few days away from having the vote on the term sheet, and we agreed to set this date in January to talk about next steps for the committee. And I'll tell you what I had planned to discuss, and then then we can do whatever you guys want as far as talking about more things, because next steps is a big topic. I had three questions that I was hoping to ask a representative of the administration. In their absence, I'm going to ask Ms. Godin to transmit the questions, and I'll let you guys know what those are. And if anybody else has something else about the status that they want the administration to answer, you can either press your button now and Danielle can get them the question, or you can submit it whenever. And those questions I had are, now that we're heading into late January, when does the administration expect that legislation will be filed? Number two, is there going to be racetrack legislation pending at the same time as stadium legislation? And I'm asking that just because I think it's helpful for us to get our brains around what the workload's going to be at the time. And similarly, what is the timing of the capital spending plan that was going to be in October, then was going to be in November, and then was going to be in December, and now I haven't heard anything for a while. And again, that's just trying to wrap my brain around workload for the committee and the whole council. So those are the three questions I've got. And before we talk about the role of the committee going forward, does anybody have other questions they'd like to lay on the administration? Council Member Benedict.
Thank you, Chair, especially since I'm not on committee. During one of the meetings, I asked if the administration would be willing to put this through with a 2-meeting deferral on the binding on the contract when it comes through. So I'd like to ask the administration if they will go ahead and file that with the expectation that we'll have 6 weeks to review it.
Okay. Anybody else? Let me just get your question clarified. Everything is going to be on 3 readings, so you're anticipating like 5 meetings total, or?
I thought it was so is there not there's going to be a bill, but also a resolution, is that not, I thought?
I mean, the answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm expecting a half-foot stack of ordinances. I thought they would all be ordinances, but maybe there'll be a combination of ordinances and resolutions. So your question is, if resolutions are in the package, those are going to be delayed to match up with 3rd reading on the ordinances?
Yeah, so what I'm getting at with this is that we're not going to be rushed through, that we're going to have an adequate amount of time to potentially get back in front of the public. That was my question that particular day to Mr. Wilcox, and he wouldn't commit to allowing us potentially as much as 6 weeks so that we could take the deal and put it in front of the public the way that you did the public meetings before. So I'm not requesting that we put that on your shoulders, but that may be something that we want, somehow to break it down to the public a bit better and get their input once we have the final deal from the mayor, so that when we put forth amendments to the deal, that'll be representative of what the public has seen from the final deal that the mayor has. So that would be my intent. Okay. Is to do all of that and to make sure that any resolutions that are filed are given enough time. So I'd like 6 weeks to be able to do all of that in total.
Ms. Godin, you got that? All right, cool. Anybody else? All right, then I will, I think back in mid-December, I mean, honestly, I think my brain was fried and I didn't have a good idea about what the committee's role should be going forward. And a couple of you proposed some things during that meeting, which were really helpful. And so let me just run through the way I'm thinking about it, and then I'm looking for feedback. number one, once the legislation is filed, I feel like the most important thing for the committee to do in terms of gathering information is to get an analysis from our council director about what things in the stack of legislation match the term sheet, are different than the term sheet, are new, that wasn't discussed at all in the term sheet, and what things might have been deleted that were in the term sheet but didn't make the final documents. And I'm using my own experience from law practice. If I move from a term sheet to a stack of stuff, that's the basic thing you want to know is what matches, what's different, what's new, what went away. And I think that is number one on our list as far as information, because we carried all the work we did last year brought us up to understanding, I think, the term sheet as well as possible. And next, there's no need to reinvent that. Anything that's the same, like, oh, this matches. Anything that's different, it's different. What's new, what got deleted. So number one, and I've had conversations with Council Director Darby before the holidays, and she agrees that work needs to be done. So that's one thing I think that should happen through the committee process. I think we should definitely leave in place the Q&A function of the committee, where once a week Ms. Godin was submitting questions from the council to the administration. The administration was answering roughly once a week, and no surprise, nobody really submitted questions during the holidays. Once legislation is filed, that'll pick up again. And so the committee should definitely be the touchstone for that, and that information should end up on the committee's website. I think that we should have at least one meeting after that council director analysis is done for us to talk about what's in the analysis, and it'll generate questions from council members about that, and that is I think a good function for the committee. Beyond that, my sense is that the gathering of information may be complete at that point, and we need to have debate about it. We'll want to have debate about different aspects of it. And the idea always was to have, at least my understanding, debate happen through the existing committee structure, that we weren't going to vote here in this committee. We were keeping our eye on the prize of gathering information and leaving the back and forth about debating for the regular committee structure. So for me, what I've considered through the holidays is get that analysis, keep the question and answer process alive, at least have at least one meeting to talk about what's in the analysis. But then otherwise, whether it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it's going to go by fast, and we have to have our standing substantive committees engage meaningfully. So I'm not wed to any of that whatsoever. You guys can tell me it's a horrible idea, something different is fine. The whole point of today is just talk about how the committee is going to handle its business next. So I'd like to hear from the committee members first. We got 5 of us present now, and then open it to the others. Who wants to go first? Councilmember Druffel.
When it comes down to the council meetings, what committees will review? I know finance and budget, but are there other committees?
For the term sheet, it was 2 committees. Okay. It was, we changed the names, and I never learned the new, public facilities, okay. Is that what it's called? Public facilities and budget and finance were the 2 committees that heard the term sheet. So that's what I expect will be the case.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of these documents also come before the Sports Authority. And one of the things that I'm just throwing out there just for ideas is whether or not might be an opportunity for the Sports Authority and the council to maybe have a joint presentation or joint meeting or something like that. And kind of the main reason I think that is like, even this morning, Sports Authority has updates every month. And today's update about the stadium proposal was like, oh, we're going to have documents in a couple of months. It was on the agenda, but that was just kind of it. But there sort of are two bodies that are considering a lot of these things in kind of a parallel track. And that may be good or not, but I just am interested in maybe the possibility of having some degree of, at a minimum, overlap of the two, or just so that we're all aware of, that the council and the Sports Authority bodies are aware of what each other's discussions are like, other than reviewing YouTube videos or reading about it in the press. It's just, I just don't know if that's doable or how that would work, but that's just something that I've experienced, because like I say, I go to the Sports Authority meetings and listen to their discussion, and then obviously we have ours, and there's this kind of parallel track of discussions of more or less the same things that are taking place. And is there an opportunity to have maybe a little bit better coordination between the two for such a large decision? And I don't know good or bad, but just wanted to throw that out.
I appreciate that suggestion. Let me reflect on that. I mean, my gut reaction is no board or commission in our 7 years in office has ever voted no on anything from the administration. So I appreciate their volunteerism, but I'm not sure that, like, they regularly get told at those commissions, when in doubt, vote yes, so the council has a chance to consider it. So I got questions about it, but I do, like, it's a good point about, more information would be better. So let me think about that, Councilmember. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Chair. And I think just kind of following up on that, the relationship as we consider these documents as they come before us, that we have with the Sports Authority, I do want to ask Ms. Godin maybe to resubmit my request that, any of the agreements, documents that this body approves, that amendments to those agreements also come before us, so we're not sort of having these agreements be amendable without coming back to this body, as I think I'm not quite sure. Did some of the later amendments to the existing lease, those did not come before council at any point, did they?
I don't know off the top of my head about that. I know that there's definitely, it's been a mixed bag on that, and that is one way where the previous councils and previous deals have lost the ability to participate in amendments on different things, but I don't know about the football stadium in particular.
Okay, well, that's my ask of the administration. If you could reiterate that, Ms. Godin, to them, that all the documents have any proposed amendments come before this body in the future of any agreement. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Toombs.
So I have a concern about getting a fat stack of documents and having to go through them in a short amount of time. And I recall maybe at the last committee meeting, maybe it was Budget and Finance. I know Mr. Jameson went through a whole slew of documents that were still to come. So if we can get ahead of time, at least an update of what we can expect, a list of the documents, and when.
Yeah, could you add that to the timing of the, I had the question about the timing of the legislation, and add to that a working list of how many different pieces of legislation there will be. Hold on.
So I updated the East Bank Stadium Committee websites on January 10th with the latest batch of questions. And there is a section that breaks down the list of expected legislation that will come before the council.
What page of the PDF is that?
Page 32.
I guess I ask all of you all to look at that new information, page 32 of the Q&A on the website, and if it prompts further questions, try to get them to Ms. Godin in the next couple days, and she can ask some follow-ups about that.
So it's a list of documents. Does it include the timeline as well?
Okay. And anybody else? Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair, and once again, thanks for letting me talk. I'm looking, I just pulled up, I Googled something and it pulled up a summary of Titan Stadium term sheet, Mayor's Office presentation, October 26, 2022. And on it says proposed schedule. Q1 of 2023 is all of the documents, and then Q2 and Q3 would be the team finalizes stuff. So I want to say, it looks like in October, the administration had an expectation that this could go through the end of March as their proposed schedule. So I think they might say, hey, well, we proposed that we'd like to go faster if possible, but I think what we heard from the public and what I think the mayor would want to do is what the public asked for, what we heard from people, all of the people we represent, was slow this down. And what I think you're hearing here today, what I'm hearing here today, rather, is slow this down. So I would hope that again, going back to the timeline, this is from the mayor's office that it would go through Q1. So again, I just would reiterate that if we can slow it down, make sure the public has full engagement, if documents are available sooner, almost finalized and can be released to us sooner, then we can get that recap going so that we can share it with our constituents so that then we can get their feedback and make those amendments. So
Thank you. That's a good point. The reason why I wanted to ask the current version of the expected timeline is because right at the beginning of December, which is, 45 days ago now, at that point in time, I was told by both sides that drafting had started, before we got to the term sheet approved, drafting had started. So by now they're accounting for the holidays, a month or so into drafting. They should have a more robust idea now, or a more clarified view of what the time frame is. And I think even before we took the vote, I think I was hearing from some of the folks in the mayor's office that by March or maybe April. And so I think that's the whole reason I wanted to ask the question now is clear the holidays, we're a month into drafting stuff. What's the idea now on timeline? Just so, and again, with those other things, racetrack and capital spending plan, the reality is all of us are going to have to allocate resources in our own lives to deal with this. And if we're not going to see stuff till April, that's one thing. If we're going to see stuff next week, that's something else. Like, just give us no right or wrong answer. Just what are you thinking? Other thoughts? Well, okay, so let me ask this question, which is the last thing on my list. Is there a point to this committee meeting before legislation is out, whenever that will be? I got a head nod no from Councilmember Druffel. Go ahead. I turned your mic on.
And you've been patient. We've been doing this for 5 months, 4 months. I
July.
think it's been incredible, and I think there's some good value that we've gotten along the way, but I think we really need to see the financial audit before we can evaluate it, personal opinion.
Councilmember Parker.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that sentiment that there's not, but I think also I would like to leave the door open. I think just trusting your discretion, should a meeting need to be called, I think that's fine. If something comes up and there's some reason, I don't think we need to definitively say today that we're not meeting until documents. But I think that generally, yeah, there's not much reason to meet prior to documents.
How do y'all feel about saying, I'll work with Ms. Godin to pick a date about 4 weeks from now, so middle of February, but a solid 4 weeks from now, and have the date, and 7 or 10 days before that date, if we're in exactly the same situation we are now, I'll call it off.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
All right. Anybody got a better idea? All right. Councilman Parker, Gold Star. All right. Well, we managed to spread that. That was 20 whole minutes, guys. Anything else we need to talk about? All right. Hold on. Councilman Cash. Your mic's on.
This may go back to the administration, asking the administration question, or I'm sorry, not administration, but what you're asking Director Darby to do. I mean, I think at the December meeting, we had some good amendments, and we passed some good amendments to the term sheet. And I know that's what I want to be looking at as we see what comes out of it is how seriously they're taking those amendments that we added, and I think kind of push discussion, and some came from what we heard at the meetings. So if I don't know if there's any way to highlight that kind of stuff that's kind of new to the term sheet.
I think that's a great idea. I'll go ahead. If this were a sports line, I'll put the over/under on. They'll make changes of less than 0.1% of the value of the deal, but we'll definitely figure out everything that's new in that analysis and highlight it. Anybody else? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks for coming today.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.